So I have some errands to run today, but before I go, I'm going to make the faces for the next ornaments. And I need little round frit balls. So I'm going to make a bunch that are 3/8 by 3/8, and I'll make a bunch that are 1/4 by 1/4. I'll do a couple that are 1/2 by 1/2 because I'm not sure which ones will work out best. And they will fire quickly in the fiber kiln, but it takes a really long time for them to cool. So they'll be cool by the time I'm done. These will usually pull into a nice circular shape in the kiln, but when I really want them to turn out like nice circles and I don't want to take a chance, I will nip the edges off to give them a little boost in that direction. Probably not necessary, but I'd prefer to do this once and not have to do it again. So I want them definitely to come into nice circles. The next ornament is going to be a nativity. That's pretty large for an ornament, but it's got a lot of teeny tiny pieces, so it sort of needs to be. But I may trim it down a little because the background has to be tecta, and I only have 2 pieces of tecta left. So I need to cut some 3 1/4 strips. I think I'll do 1 3 1/4 strip, and then I'll just put as many of them. I'll end up making 3. Now I need to cut a bunch of strips that are 1/4 inch and 3/8 to make the walls, the roof, and the floor. And I'm terrible at cutting these little strips, so I won't show you that. So I have the back pieces, and then I cut a bunch of strips. And I'm terrible at cutting 1/4 inch strips, so I have a lot more than I really need that are just small pieces. And I think what I'm going to have is butterscotch for the base, which I really like. And then I might have this brown for the walls, and then a much darker brown for the roof. Although I may use these for the walls because these are transparent. This dark brown is transparent, and this is opaque, and this is opaque. So I'm just not sure. But so far, that's what I'm looking at. I could also do, make sure you can actually see this, the dark brown roof I like, the butterscotch floor I like, but I could also do butterscotch walls. So I'm not sure about that yet. The faces, I have a little tiny face. These are the frit balls I made earlier this morning. These are the little tiniest ones, are the angels. And then I've got little baby Jesus. And then Mary and Joseph. I actually cut a frit ball in half. Whoops. So there's his face with the hair. And Mary's face, but then her robes. So there's a pattern piece. And there's a pattern piece. I have a little pattern for the creche. And then I started working on the halos. And it's going to be nichrome wire, but the nichrome wire fuses very dark. So I may switch one of them out for silver to see if the silver stays nicer or if it can be cleaned up after firing. So that's where I am now. I'm just kind of playing with the layout. Which do I like better? And then I'm going to have to trim them all to fit. And here's Joseph's robe. And he will also have a shepherd's crook out of nichrome wire. Or silver, not sure yet. And here's the little halo for the angel. Alrighty. So I still need to make the robes. Those I'm going to do with the Torah saw. I hope I have enough frit balls. And halos. And to put straw in the manger, I'm going to use golden colored stringers. So that's the basic outline, and then I need to figure out what I'm going to do for that angel. She needs wings and she needs a gown. So I'm taking the pieces to the grinder and getting them closer to the shape that I need. And then I'm going to start gluing these down. I'm going to use Elmer's glue. Elmer's tends to be a more secure hold than the glass tack. These are nichrome and this is sterling, and it's going to fire really dark. The sleigh runners started out that same shiny and they fired really dark. I'm not sure if I want the halo to be dark or I want it to be shiny. This will fire darker, but it'll clean up really shiny. So I'm going to do 2 with nichrome wire and I'll do 1 with sterling and see which one works best. The silver wire is much easier to work with, but obviously costs a lot more. So now we're going to glue on the roof and the walls before we start putting the other people in. While I'm doing the peak of the roof, I'm also going to put the hanger in. I always give them a little bit of a bend because when you put them in straight, they don't usually fall out, but they could if you pulled hard enough. And the answer could be don't pull so hard, or just put a little bit of a bend in there. And you want it to be hidden behind the glass. That one will show up a little bit because this is transparent, but that's okay. Oof. Okay, final step. I moved them over onto a kiln shelf and I'll finish building there. I need to make Mary and Joseph. These are their faces. Joseph is going to have a brown robe with like a shawl or sash of cream. Mary's going to be in this blue with the cream and blue over it. So I need to trace those and bring it to the Torah saw. Well, you can see that I'm quite a bit further along. I was happily filming the whole process and never realized that the camera battery was dead. So I don't have those steps. What I did for the angels, I cut a little tiny white triangle and then 2 little teeny triangles out of dichroic glass. And I'm putting the dichro down for their wings. Oops. And then I took nichrome wire and made a little staff for Joseph to be holding. And what else did I, oh, the hands are quarter dots. I think that's all we missed. I'm going to put little bits of stringers so it looks like straw on the edge of the manger and sticking up a little bit. And I'm going to dust the whole thing with clear powder to finish. So to cut these wings, I thought I was going to be able to do the half triangles. They ended up being way too big. So I'm taking these little squares that I hoped to cut in half, and I'm just nipping the corners off them and then grinding them down until they fit the scale of the angel. And as soon as these get a dusting of clear powder, they will go in the kiln, and I will show you how they turn out in the morning. My little characters are not getting faces. They're just too tiny. See, that one's not too bad. This one is a little bit big. So I'll just grind them down a little bit, pop them on, put some straw in the manger, dusting of crystal clear powder, and in the kiln they will go. I'll put them in for a tack fuse because I want them to keep texture and not get too soft. I'm looking at all of my stringers and they're all too big. So I'm going to pull this part back off, dip it in glue, and then I'm going to dip it in this, which is marigold medium grain frit. There we go. Because there are so many teeny tiny pieces, that's why I put the clear powder on. It tends to hold everything in place when you've done this. And if I had thought about it sooner, I wouldn't have to take it all back apart. But that's pretty much how I do glass. I come up with an idea and then change it 16 times. Okay, these are done and they turned out great. The one with silver wire actually reacted with the butterscotch. So I'm hoping once I clean that one up, that will actually be a nice feature where you'll have the shiny silver against that darkened area. One of them came apart, but it came apart in a way where I can put it back together really easily and refire. Very cute. So I recommend either being really careful about what glass you use or don't use the silver. Use the nichrome wire. These beautiful swirly colors came in scrap packs. I buy butterscotch by the sheet, but all of the others are just part of a scrap pack. And I find when I buy the glass that way, it's much less expensive and it really fuels creativity.